be Pythonic. This one, if you've programmed before, is kind of going to blow your mind, so to speak, whereby if I want the cat to meow 3 times, what if I actually do this? Print, open parenthesis, quote unquote, meow times 3. All right, you have to be kind of a geek to think this is cool, but this is kind of cool. So you can literally just print what you want, multiply it by the number of times that you want it, and you will get back exactly that result. Now, I've kind of made a mistake here, so let's see what this does. It's not quite as beautiful as this code might look to you, to some of you, to me. Let me run Python of cat.py, enter. OK, it's a really, like, hungry cat or something. It's meowing really fast. But I can fix this, I bet. Let's think about now some of the basic building blocks we've discussed. The problem is clearly that literally meow, meow, meow is being repeated 3 times, but it's not as pretty as I want it. I want it to be meow, meow, meow on separate lines. What might be a possible solution here while still using this multiplication operator? And think back, we've used plus to concatenate strings. You can apparently use multiplication to concatenate strings, but more than once, again and again and again. How could I clean this up without reverting to my for loop or my while loop and still use multiplication in this way? Yeah, Musa, if I'm saying it right?
We can use the escape sequence, which would be \n.
Amazing. Yes, think back to \n, which is the way you as the programmer can express a new line in code. And I think if I take your advice, I put a \n there inside of my quotes, so that at the end of every MEOW, there's a new line. Let's see how this looks. Let me clear my screen and run Python of cat.py. OK, so close. I like this. Let me call on someone else. The only thing I don't like, and I know I'm being really nitpicky now, is that it's meow, meow, meow on separate lines, but there's kind of this extra blank line, which I'm just not loving aesthetically. It's a minor nitpick, but someone else, what could we do now to fix this more cleanly? Mohammed?
I think we can make end equal to colon, not \n.
Yeah, so here too, like all of these things we've seen in past weeks are kind of coming together, right? Recall that the print function lets you control what the line ending is. By default, it's \n itself, which is why at the very end of this print, the cursor is being moved again to the next line. Well, we need to just override that. So let me go into my code here, and let me change this to comma end equals quote unquote, so that it's no longer the default \n. It's instead now going to be nothing whatsoever. That should eliminate then hopefully that additional blank line. So let me run this one last time here, Python of cat.py, enter, and there we have it. Other questions now on this program or others? Mohammed?
From where we bring the name of the key results?
From where do we get the name of the key?
Results itself. Can we change the results name?
You cannot. So we could in our program. So the keys that come back in that JSON response, to be clear, come from itunes.apple.com. Some engineer, some team of engineers decided for us what all of those keys would be called, including track name, results, result count, and everything else. You and I can absolutely store those same values in variables, just like I'm doing here with O, just like I'm doing here with result. You can rename those keys anything you want using Python variables, but the JSON response is coming from that third-party server. Mohammed, over to you.
Mr. David. I have 2 questions, if you...
Sure.
The first one, the key, can it equal to just a variable, not the outcome of GitHub function? This is my first question.
I'm not sure
the key.
Yeah, the key?
Yes, it equal to the returned value of the function. Can it equal to just a variable or a value?
Well, yes, it should equal a value. So I'm specific, and I should clarify actually, since this was not obvious. So when you pass in a function like getName or getHouse to the sorted function as the value of key, that function is automatically called by the sorted function for you on each of the dictionaries in the list. and it uses the return value of getName or getHouse to decide what strings to actually use to compare in order to decide which is alphabetically correct. So this function, which you pass just by name, you do not pass in parentheses at the end, is called by the sorted function in order to figure out for you how to compare these same values. And
the second one.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
How can we use nested dictionaries? يعني I have read about nested dictionaries. What is the difference between nested dictionaries and dictionary inside a list? I think it is.
Sure. So we are using a list of dictionaries. Why? Because each of those dictionaries represents a student, and a student has a name and a house, and we want to, I claim, maintain that association. And it's a list of students because we've got multiple students, 4 in this case. You could create a structure that is a dictionary of dictionaries, but I would argue it just doesn't solve a problem. I don't need a dictionary of dictionary. I need a list of key value pairs right now. That's all. Let's put the entire logic I just wrote inside of our typical method called main, and let me indent those 3 lines so that at least they're now combined into one main method. But instead of using input on line 2 and input on line 3, why don't we go ahead and assume for the moment that we've got some function called getName in the world, and let's go ahead and assume we've got another function like getHouse in the world that don't take parameters, but their purpose in life is, by their name, going to be to get the user's name and to get their user's house respectively. And then I'm going to print out the exact same f string as before. I, of course, need to implement these functions now, so let me go lower in my file and define a function called get_name. Nothing in these parentheses because it's not going to take a parameter. And I'm going to go ahead and do something like name equals input, quote unquote, name, just like before. And then I'm going to go ahead and return name. So it's a super simple function, but it's an abstraction. I now have a function called getName whose implementation details I don't have to care about anymore. I just know that the function exists. And I can tighten this up, in fact. I don't really need a name variable on line 8 if I'm immediately going to return that same name variable on line 9. So let me just tighten this up a little bit, even though it doesn't change the functionality, and just immediately return the return value of the inputs function called here. Let's do something very similar now for getHouse, which will similarly take no arguments. I'm going to go ahead and return the return value of input, this time prompting the user for their house. And I need one final detail at the very bottom. Let's continue our habit of doing if the name of this file equals quote unquote main, then let's go ahead and actually call main. And recall that we have that in place so that this eventually becomes part of a module, a library of sorts. I don't accidentally call main blindly. I only do it if I mean to run main from the command line on this file. All right, so if I didn't make any mistakes here, let me go ahead and in my terminal window again run Python of student.py, enter. Let's type in Harry, enter. Let's type in Gryffindor, enter. And we're set. Harry from Gryffindor seems to still be working. So we haven't really solved the problem any more correctly, but I've laid the foundation to maybe now do some more interesting things because I've had these building blocks in place. All right, but let me propose that we could be doing this a little bit differently. GetName, getHouse is fine, but at the end of the day, I'm really trying to get a student from the user. I want their name and their house, not just one or the other. So maybe it would be a little cleaner still to define a function called getStudent and let getStudent do all of this work for us. Now, theoretically, getStudent could call getName and could call getHouse, but because these functions are so short, I think I'm okay with just defining one function called getStudent that similarly won't take any arguments, but it's going to do 2 things. It's going to get the student's name by prompting them with input as before, and it's going to get the student's house by also prompting them as before. And then, now, I want to return the student, but I think I might have painted myself into a corner here because I now have 2 variables, name and house, and yet up until now, we've pretty much returned one or the other. We've returned one value. So any suggestions for how we can perhaps solve this problem that I just created for myself, whereby I want to return really a student, but I currently have a name variable and a house variable. I'd minimally like to return both of those. Any instincts for how we might solve this, even if you've not seen it before? Mohammed, your thoughts?
I believe that we can return a dictionary include the name and the house.
Yeah, so we absolutely could return a dictionary, a dict object in Python, whereby maybe one key is name, one key is house, and the values thereof are exactly the values of these variables. So we could totally do that. I worry that that might be getting a little complicated. I wonder if there's a simpler way instead. Any other instincts, even if you're not sure it would work? How about Akshay? What do you think?
Return both name and house.
Return both name and house. I like the sound of that. It sounds simple. I don't have to figure out what a dictionary is going to look like. And in fact, this too would be a valid approach, even if you've not seen this before. It turns out in Python that you can kind of return multiple values, but that's a bit of a white lie. Or we could take Mohammed's approach of actually returning a dictionary and putting multiple keys therein. So here again, we have yet another example of how you can solve the same problem in at least two ways, and I dare say we're about to see even more. So one way you could solve this problem, whereby you want to return multiple values, would be to do something like this. I could go ahead and literally return not just name, but I could put a comma and also return house. This is not necessarily something you can do in other languages if you have programmed in other languages before. It depends on the language. But it looks like, thanks to this comma, maybe I can in fact return two values as actually proposed. Well, if I'm returning two values in this way on line 10, how do I get both values at the same time? Well, there's a couple of ways. Let me go up to my main function. I know minimally I'm going to have to change the getName and getHouse to getStudent. But what am I going to store the return value in? I think I could actually do this. And we have seen this technique before, where you can unpack, so to speak, sequences of values that are coming back. And indeed, consider this to be exactly that. Name, comma, house is some kind of sequence that I'm returning of values. Name, comma, house. So if I want to unpack those and store the return values in two separate variables, I can, in fact, use the commas on the left-hand side of my assignment operator, the equal sign, to do just that. Any questions now on classes, this new keyword class, or this idea of these objects or instances thereof? Yeah, Mohammed?
Is the class object mutable or immutable?
A good question, and we've clearly laid the stage for having that conversation about every data type now. We will see that they are mutable, but you can make them immutable. So you can get the best of both worlds now by writing some actual code. And we'll write more code than the ... in just a bit.